Hey, Mike, how are you?
I am fine, Bob. How you doing this fine day?
Well, it's Taco Tuesday, and who doesn't love a good Taco Tuesday?
Well, that's certainly true. And we have the biggest goddamn taco in the world.
I listen. I've never been so happy for it to be Taco Tuesday.
I agree. I mean, I've never been so happy to start a SquadCast without the fear of an EMP at any second.
Well, I hope, and I don't know if anybody, we get there. Let me give me 1 second. Well, uh, um, we're hopeful of certain things,
Hi,
but
Sherry.
I we may have an issue with YouTube. I just need to check that real quick. Um, See if we are actually live there. We are,
Ah,
because there was some issues about some APIs, not, but your EMP statement made me think of APIs, and
you may
we
want to
are live.
explain. You may want to explain to a few folks who may not understand that.
Well, there was some issues with our streaming service and connecting to YouTube earlier today, so they gave us a warning, which is called that connective technology is called an API, an application input, and it's working, so we're good. Um, for those who don't know what we're talking about with Taco Tuesday, um, go to the apnews.com and find out that we are not bombing Iran into oblivion
Today,
today. Two
right
weeks.
now,
There's 2 week
right
break.
now.
If you wait
Yeah.
2 weeks, he'll tell you what happens in 2 weeks. Post cannot
And
be.
here I was so happy he waited until Passover was almost over.
Well, okay. There's that stuff going on. It's it's
It's
unpleasant.
maddening. It's maddening. It's maddening.
It's
And for you more so than most, and I'm very appreciative of your ability to put words together after all the bullshit you've been through. It's
I am appreciative of as well. Um, I want to take in there's a lot of political generic news out there in the world, but this is not what this show is about, so we're not going to spend too much time on that. There's not, though, a lot of real comic news, which is kind of good because it just means that people are making comics and nothing terrible and awful is happening.
no, they're all en route to or en route back from massive conventions, all of which seem to be held on the same weekend.
Don't worry, there's more coming.
Yeah,
There's
I
more.
know. And so are we.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about. Let's talk about a couple of things before we bring on our guests. But if you aren't here and aren't paying attention, we have a fantastic pair of guests on tonight. Andy Parks and Dave Wachter are going to be on, and they both have checked in, so I know that their technology works. So they will be here shortly. Um, we're going to talk about their careers as artists, writers, creators. We are going to talk about this book. This is the cold open to their new collaboration called Bad Thoughts from Ignition Press. And we're going to talk about some other cool stuff. Um, in the meantime, let's talk about Pop Culture Squad and the SquadCast, what we have going on here. We're here every Tuesday night. We are going to bring you guests from now until we're booked through May. What are we talking about? Well, coming up next week on Tuesday, we're gonna bring Paul Eza and D Fish back to the show, which has become a fine tradition to have them here on the launch of one of their Kickstarters. The second issue of Olympian is coming, and I know we're both excited to talk to them. The following week, we have Dean Haspiel. I'm pretty sure he's been on the show more than anybody. But he's going to bring some other guests because they have a Kickstarter that's launching uh, I, sometime between now and then. And the following week, we're going to bring back Jeff Parker, who hasn't been here in a few years. He's got some good new stuff coming out, and we're excited for that. Matthew Rosenberg is going to be here in May. Cullen Bunn is going to be here in May. John Lehman and Rob Gilroy are going to be here in May. That's so if you're watching this, you should be, liking, subscribing, whatever it is you need to do to make sure that you get notified when we go live every Tuesday night.
And if you're not watching this live, you're hearing voices.
You can still, listen to us or whatever.
We have nothing. These are all Tuesdays.
These are all Tuesdays. There is a Thursday. This Thursday in 2 days. 2 days, we have the wonderful Chris Miscavige and Jonathan Marks Baravecchia. They have collaborated on a graphic novel that has just come out, and we're going to talk to them about it. It is a graphic novel from Z2, inspired by the band Dance Gavin Dance. So that's in 2 days on Tuesday. Mike does not have the link yet, but I will send it to him after we're done with this show. They're excited to be on. So in 2 days, Thursday, we have a Thursday show, and then all of those Tuesday shows back to back to back to back. I've kind of booked the last one, the last week of May as well, but I just haven't confirmed. I didn't want to put it up on there, but that'll be a lot of fun too.
As you may recall, I'm always really interested in talking about the connection between music and comics. And I'm not going to do that now because we probably will, in a couple of days, but it's a phenomenon that we backed into somehow and is a very strong connection. There's an extremely strong connection. And it's not just Jack Kirby, posing with Frank Zappa for photos, although that's pretty goddamn cool.
No, I agree. The thing about you're going to get the chance to talk about the intersection of comics and music with Chris Miscavige, so that makes it even more of a thing. It will be interesting. For folks who are listening and watching, if you are not familiar, this is an avenue. This pop culture squadcast that we do, it is an avenue to something else. It's an avenue to popculturesquad.com. And I just want to take a minute. We don't do this very often. I want to kind of slide through and give you an idea about what you're going to find over there. So when you go to popculturesquad.com, we have tons of different genres and different things to talk about, but we also have a bunch of articles. There's a great article that came out that was posted today by our good friend Mark Fishman about style over substance. Did you read it?
I have not. I looked at the pictures. I haven't read it yet.
Well, I did the pictures.
Oh.
But it's very.
I gotta talk to Mark about that.
So it's really an interesting concept, talking about how we sometimes people scoff their noses at the legitimacy of and value of movies that are heavy in the style and not so much in the plot. And he makes some good points. I think it's a lot of fun. And
you're accepting Skinflix from that, right?
We are not talking. I don't know that Mark's ever seen one. We'll just leave it at that. Then there's a really good review of Mad About DC by my co-host here that's on the site, and you'll find these types of things on a regular basis. Whether you'll have links to our SquadCast as they come up. You'll have our column by Ed Cato. With further ado, he was talking about the fact that there's Archie, giant size Archies in the magazine section of grocery stores.
That was a good issue too. I like that one.
Yep. And like I said, this is pretty much what we have here. We have a lot of interesting stuff, whether it's Mike's pieces about comics history or new comics or politics or the world at large, or Ed does a lot of stuff where he goes back and forth, goes back into some bargain bins and has nostalgia going through the brain. Anyway, I just wanted to let people know, if they're not familiar, popculturesquad.com is a place where you can go get a whole bunch of interesting information, and be connected to when we go live. Because if you sign up through that site, you will get notified when a new article comes out, and whenever we are live, we put a post there, so it goes to that.
And it's great stuff, if I say so myself, except for
Well,
the things that I write.
that's pretty good too. Um, what what have you read in the past week, Mike, that you want to talk about?
Oh, I know why you ask. Um, Not much. How about you? Okay, all
Um,
right, all right. You can stop
I read
swearing
stuff.
at me. I read a lot of stuff too. The Man Thing I reviewed, so I'm not gonna go over that again, other than to I didn't mention how that must have been a nightmare to put together, because those types of books always are.
Sure.
You need the permissions from the mad people, and you don't want to piss anybody off, and you want all the collaborators at DC and in the comics business to do their stories with as much freedom and excitement as humanly possible, and they're all like 2-page stories. That's a nightmare from a technical perspective. My hats off to Chip Zdarsky, who edited it, and to Marie Javins, who's the editor in chief and the assistant editor on this project. Given her day job, my guess is she did a lot of the heavy carrying on all that bureaucratic stuff. So I admire her greatly for that. What else have I read? I read Batman, which wasn't bad. I
I
read
I liked Batman. I think I'm maybe a week behind. I read, I think issue 8 came out. I haven't read 8. I read 7.
See, I no longer know the numbers of issues.
Yeah, well, I've never been good with that. Um, the one where there's a special cell for a certain person. Is
Uh,
that the one you? Is that the most recent one you read, or the one was that the one before?
uh, I don't recall.
All right. Well,
I don't
I'm sure
recall. I
it gave you.
recall. I recall liking it. I recall
I've liked
liking.
I've liked Matt Fraction and Jorge Jimenez's run. I've enjoyed it.
I, I like their work I, a lot, and I'm predisposed to enjoy anything that either of them do. So
Fair.
so this is a swell project. It's good to see Matt on the book. I think of all the great writers they have had on Batman the last few years, he deserves that spot. So
Yeah. I mean,
damn.
yeah. I'm. It's interesting. Well, we have one of our guests here, so we're gonna hang out for a second and let's talk about this. I may hold off on that. I'll pull it for next time. While we're here, we do have a message from a comment here. You want to comment on Starfleet Academy's cancellation?
Uh Without getting political, that's a little hard. Um I'm not surprised, because nobody's figured out what to do with streaming. Everybody knows that there's no money in it. People are sick and tired of losing money on it. Um, but I love the show, and I'm pissed that they're shit canning it. I realize that the main reason why you cancel a show on streaming television, and just about the only reason, is because you think you're not going to attract any more new subscribers, or you're worried that the few that you've picked up will leave when the show is over. The way things are going over at Paramount Plus right now, I'm thinking about leaving all of this shit behind. And that might happen with HBO as well, which would piss me off even more. Um, What they don't seem to recognize, and I'm not talking about this particular show, but overall, once you get somebody really hyped and interested in a TV series to the point where they're willing to spend 10, 20 bucks a month, whatever it is, on that channel so you can get that TV show, maybe a few others, but not enough to make it worth your money. You have an investment in that show, and if they shit can that show, chances are really good that you're going to reconsider whether you still want to pay that money every month. You get us all excited about something new, and then you kill it. It's rare for any streamed show to hit a third and certainly a fourth season. The fact that so many of them, so many of the Star Trek stuff, all the Star Trek stuff, had done that beforehand, just shows you how competent the previous management was compared to the new clowns.
I think that's fair. I would love to see some metrics on that. If there's some way to measure, the number of people who don't subscribe, who cancel subscriptions based on shows being canceled, and it's hard. It's hard because they announced it's canceled, but there's still a whole second season coming.
That's right.
So
That's
they
right.
won't be able to recognize it. They can't tie one another together. They just make these grand schemes of things.
Not only that, but I don't think they're likely to get the massive cooperation that you normally get from a cast that is actively involved in promoting the show that they're on.
Because they're no longer on it.
Because they're no longer on it. And if they have other stuff to do, they'll do the other stuff. And if they just don't want to because they don't like you because you're a precocious little bugger, then they won't.
Dean figured it out. They all die in the second season.
Does Dean kill them?
We'll get to that.
Are they are they going to Red Hook? What's the deal?
I don't know. Well, we fooled around long enough.
Okay.
And thanks everybody for being here for the opening dialogue. Before we finish, we'll come back and let you know who's going to be on when, and we'll come back at the end of our interview. But I do want to bring in our guests. We have two fantastic creators here. They are working together on a new project. They are both very prolific. So we have our special intros for them. I'm going to do them one at a time because it's just so much. So we're going to bring in Dave first, and then we'll sit here and make him watch Andy's intro. So welcome to the show, Dave Wachter. Hey, Dave, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How's it going?
Good.
Hi, Dave.
Good. You sound good. Everything's great.
Hi, Mike. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
That was a lot of fun making that little intro. It's funny to see how many amazing people you've worked with through your career, and I feel, and we can talk about this later, that you are probably one of the most underrated phenomenons in comics in the last 5 to 10 years.
Well, thank you. I guess I think I'm probably, yeah. What is it when comedians are always like always the comedian's comedian? That means nobody knows who he is.
You're the artist.
I don't know. I guess. Yeah.
Well,
although I'm not even sure many other artists know who I am. So.
Well, again, these are things we are hoping to change. But in the meantime, let's bring in your tonight. Yes, let's bring in your co-creator, who has worked with even more. amazing people, but is brilliant and multifaceted in his talents. Let's bring in Andy Parks.
Well,
Hey,
we've
Andy,
run
how
out,
are you?
Hey,
we've
boys.
run out of time, folks. So that's it.
That was some sizzle reel. I don't think I've ever had such a reel coming onto a podcast. Amazing.
It's one of the things I enjoy. I enjoy, kind of going back in our guests and looking at their history and things. And inevitably there's a question that pops up in my head. I'm like, oh, I wonder what that was like. Sherry says hi, Dave.
Oh, hi, Sherry.
We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff, but I want to start off, and I want to talk about bad thoughts first, and let's talk about your guys' collaboration here. First of all, where did this idea come from? Whose idea did it pop from? And then, and how did you guys come together to work to get on this?
Well, I was thinking as you talked about Dave, this artist knew about Dave enough to say, is there any chance we could get Dave for this project?
Oh, fantastic. That's what I hear.
I asked my editor, all the Ignition guys knew Dave. I think Jamie, the actual editor, knew him less than the other guys. But Jeremy Hahn and Philip Sablik knew him real well. And everybody was eager to work with him. So we just had to wait for his availability. This thing has been kicking around in my head for like a decade in various forms. And I'm going to tell you what it is briefly. The elevator pitch is it's like an extraction thriller with a Stephen King twist. And the twist being that the lead is an empath who only picks up the most violent, awful stuff from his fellow humans. So it makes his life pretty difficult. He also, actions kind of resonate in time and place. So he can go to a crime scene and pick up all the negative, awful stuff that happened in that place. So he's useful as a crime scene investigator, which is kind of how we meet him. He has a job doing that. And every job is a painful ordeal for him, but it's a way he can kind of work through this curse that he's had to live with. And he has so I said I kicked this project around for a lot of years. About halfway through that process, I realized that it was actually about my wife and I.
Interesting.
Because the character is married to a woman who's so innocent that she's like the only person he's ever been able to be around with no discomfort and feel totally at peace with. And I have a lot of dark things rolling around in my head. And my wife looks at me sometimes like, what? Why? What? She's so pure. She doesn't get it. And so I realized I was kind of trying to express that in this story. And that really helped it kind of come to life once I understood that.
Living with a storyteller is tough. And I don't think storytellers can get outside of their situations enough to see how hard it is, because storytellers think of everything in terms of what ifs, in terms of fantasies, in terms of if we did this, then what happens over there. Whereas those with whom we live just want us to take the fucking garbage out.
Yeah, I have to explain to a lot of people in my life. Look, it's my job to imagine the worst possible scenarios sometimes. And so, I wrote a book about Truman Capote's time in Kansas and the in cold blood killings 15, 18 years ago. And we
Yeah.
still, if we're getting in bed and neither of us has checked the garage door, I'm like, honey, I lived with Dick and Perry in my head for 2 years. We are checking all the doors before we get in this bed. That's just the way it is.
When I read the book, I was immediately transported back to my reading In Cold Blood, which I read mostly during study hall in high school.
Yeah,
And
same. That's good.
it,
That's great. We were very
yeah,
careful not to retell what Truman did, but we definitely wanted to take you to that place and that time. And so
well,
that's nice to hear.
it seems so odd that Truman Capote would spend all that time there
Yeah.
in that environment. Now, I've spent a lot of time in certainly in Kansas City and in Kansas in general. Love the place, big ass barbecue fan. Love the music, but In Cold Blood is a scary book, and the fact that it's true makes it a lot scarier.
Yeah.
And it also makes it valid for commentary, for exposure, the way you did that.
Yeah. Thank you. The origin of that book was I had read it a little bit earlier than you mentioned. I think I was in junior high, which was probably too young. And I had also seen
That
Truman
explains a lot,
Capote.
though.
Yeah. I'd seen Truman on the Dick Cavett show, the Tonight Show. So I knew what he was like. And when I started to imagine that guy going to the middle of Kansas, actually far west of Kansas, and talking to guys like my grandfather who lived out there,
Mhm.
I was just fascinated by how that was possible and productive and how that works, where all that came from.
Just based on who Truman was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, how would my grandpa view this odd little man from New York? Just, yeah.
Right.
At that moment in time, he must have been quite a revelation to a lot of folks in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way they could have ever met somebody like that.
Right.
And I say that with a lot of respect, but I can say the same thing without any respect whatsoever. It's just at that moment in time, just totally a brain freeze to sit down and talk murder and those murders to Truman Capote.
Yeah. And when I started that process, I didn't even know Harper Lee went with him. So when I found that out, I was like, oh, well, this is really something.
So let's move on from your work with Chris Somney.
Yeah.
And
boy, not bad, huh? Eduardo Barreto, Chris Somney, Dave Wachter. I'm doing okay in this world.
we talked about Eduardo a couple weeks ago.
He was one of the nicest guys.
Very gracious guy.
I love the man.
Dave, when this was presented to you with such elevator pitch type stuff, what was your reaction to that?
Honestly, what happened with it was I was more interested, I think, in who I was working with, and that's not I like the pitch, I like the idea, I like the concept, but I know Andy's work really well, and I've known him, for a long time. We weren't close or anything, but we knew each other. We would see each other at shows and things like that. So that I think that was the real interest for me, was getting work on that, and also Ignition had a pretty good, I say a pretty good pitch for themselves and what they were doing and what they were trying to accomplish. So yeah, it sounded like it would have, it would be a really fun thing to work on, really interesting thing to work on that I wanted to be a part of. But I think Andy's name is what got me involved. Yeah. And then when Andy like contacted me personally, um, and asked me if I could be a part of it, that's what really got me interested. It just
So,
luckily it's a really good story too.
I mean,
Okay.
one of the things that you have to say is that it's very different from your most recent creator-owned, opus,
Yeah.
where you're dealing with cartoon characters
Mhm.
to this very, very gritty, realistic story about people with special powers who have to witness horrible things.
It is, yeah. Yeah. It was a complete 180 from what I had just been doing, but which was a 180 from what I had done before. I mean, the thing I did
Sure.
before Uncanny Valley was the Punisher.
Right.
So, and that was actually when I know that Jamie maybe wasn't as familiar with my work, and so I was like, well, here's some Punisher pages to see what, like, I can do this kind of stuff. I can do people walking around and shooting each other. Like I can, and
You're
make it
capable.
moody and dark and realistic and I can draw motorcycles and cars and interiors and guns and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it is.
I mean, like a professional.
Yeah, I mean that's I always uh when I hear cartoonist for myself, I always think of somebody who just needs to be able to draw everything.
Right.
Like that's the job, know how to draw everything, and um, and also I want to work in different styles. So to go back and forth between different styles is something that I want to do, and different styles and different genres. Um, that's something that I want to keep doing. I don't want to be pigeonholed into you know exactly one thing. So yeah,
That's the beauty of the medium.
yeah,
And comics has it more than anybody else, although it's not the only collaborative medium like that, where you could be working on, something very cartoony. And I don't like the word because it has a negative connotation. My definition is the same as yours, Dave. And then next you'll be doing, a romantic story or a horror story or what have you. You can exercise different muscles. Frank Frazetta did cartoony books, and he did love stories, and he did all those EC stories with Al Lewis and the other greats. You know, it's you need to be flexible for a bunch of reasons, artistic to be sure, but also just so you're going to get a paycheck later.
sure. Yeah, I mean there I've thought about this at times because I've thought about people who know my work. I worked on the Ninja Turtles for like 3 years, and I did close to 25, 30 issues of that. I've done a lot of Godzilla, so I always and I'm kind of known for doing that. So I'm always wondering, where are people coming from? Like, what do they know me from necessarily? Because I have fans of mine who are fans of Godzilla. I got fans of mine who are fans of Ninja Turtles. I got fans who are from like Marvel. Um, and then I've got fans from when I did a Western, and then I've got different fans came in for Uncanny Valley. So sometimes you have to think about, if someone who knows my work from Uncanny Valley, and then and they go, "Oh, I like that. Let me see what Bad Thoughts is about." Um, I mean, they're gonna, it's gonna be something completely different, and not that a person can't enjoy both of them, but um, I'm hoping that I don't throw too much of a curveball at people, but also I'm okay with it. Like it's not my job to try to make people feel comfortable with one certain style that I'm working on or whatever. It's I want to be able to work in different styles and do different types of things. So I think if I keep doing that, people will just maybe be able to expect that they don't. This sounds stupid, but maybe they'll expect to not know what to expect, but hopefully expect that it'll be well done. So,
Yeah.
So you need to learn how to be versatile in order to get through the stories that you haven't gotten yet.
Mhm.
And those stories will include things, even though it's set in a framework that you've worked in, you've worked on the previous issues. There's something new here. There's something new in every issue, in every story, and you have to learn how to do that new thing. And if you're used to exercising your versatility, it goes a lot easier, and it's a wonderful thing. And if you can hire Gene as an assistant, that's even better.
By the way, this book, I knew we needed somebody with serious storytelling chops because there are effects, transitions in this book that are pretty unique, where we want to try to get inside Jack's head about what he's experiencing when he's making touch with somebody else's awful stuff. And those have to be clear and just happen without the reader going, "What the hell? Where am I looking?" You know.
No, it was so I have here the cold open, which is a I'd like for you guys to explain it, but the cold open is one of the things that Ignition Press does, where it's not part of issue 1. You don't need to read it to read issue 1. That's the premise of the cold open. And this book comes out on May 27th. May 27th of this year. Issue 1 will be at your local comic shop, so make sure you get on the FOC. And we've been on an Ignition Press kick lately. We had a couple of Ignition Press writers on last week. But what is the concept of the cold open, and if somebody does get a hold of this, how do they express or expect bad thoughts to open for them in issue 1?
It was built to be, like you mentioned, a taste that introduces the concepts without affecting the overall continuity of the 5 issues, which is the big self-contained story. It was, I know they kickstarted some of the early ones, a way to get a little buy-in in both ways that can represent from the audience. Right. And I think they discovered that the shipping was kind of making that silly. Sure. You know, people would pay $10 to do the Kickstart, and then all of a sudden, oh wait, another 10 for shipping. What am I doing here? So they found a way with our book. We had already executed the cold open, which is kind of lovely as a creator, by the way. It kind of lets you get your feet under you a little bit on the series, and not. I mean, it's an effective little story, but it's kind of nice to roll into the series, kind of, you know, with a head of steam already. So anyway, Ignition found a way to launch our cold open at Planet Comic Con in Kansas City last week, which was my hometown show. So we had an exclusive cover there, and there are other ways you can get it through Ignition and so on. It's just a little teaser.
I hope I haven't read that because Bob doesn't share.
Sounds like him.
But you're going to have to go some way to come up with a story as good as the title.
Yeah, right.
That's a very seductive title.
Thank you. I wasn't really sold on it at first, but people at Ignition kept saying, yeah, that's it. So I kind of came around, and yeah, I'm pretty attached to it now.
No, I love it. I really enjoyed the cold open. I'm sold on this book. It's
I'm curious, Bob, not to put you under interrogation lamp all of a sudden, but did you, I hope at the end of that cold open, you had some feel for what Jack's talent curse is, but
oh yes,
not totally nailed down. Is that fair?
No, so like, sure. I'll be as explicit without being revealing as possible. The very opening scene was interesting. It's a young Jack who is I don't know if his abilities are manifesting or if he has an experience about it, but you can definitely tell there's something going on inside of him.
Yeah.
And from my perspective, I felt as this cold open progressed that what I initially thought happened in that first scene was more solidified.
Yeah.
You following what I'm saying?
Yeah. And
And
I don't mind
I'm being
saying
vague
that.
because I really don't want to give spoilers. I really want people to read it, but
Right.
there is the abilities that we've already mentioned that this character has seem to show up in the very first scene, but they're not explicit. They're not told to you in person. You get a better in the following scenes. You get a better understanding that other people know that he has this talent, and he shows us what the talent is vividly. And it's a very interesting concept. I like the idea.
Good. Thank you. And I don't mind saying that opening, by the way, that's the only flashback like that. Not quite true. We do see a little incident when he's younger with his to-be wife. But that's the only thing that hints at his origin.
Yeah.
And the idea of that is that adolescence combined with a very traumatic event in his life is what kind of ignited. It's when he first felt what he is. So it's kind of seeing how it all started for him.
Interesting.
Dave, that first issue cover, is that yours?
Yes.
Did you do the
Not,
look at the
not
first
the
issue
one, not the
But
one.
the one
that,
on the screen, yeah.
I don't see on the screen.
They've got the number one cover, the red one.
Oh, okay. Then that one.
Yeah, he's only
that
seeing the
one's-
back. He's only seeing himself.
No, I'm seeing all four of us, but I'm not seeing. I guess I'm
Oh.
not seeing the graphics.
But yeah, that's
come
Dave.
up.
Isn't it great?
But yeah, I
It
did
is
a
a
red.
phenomenal
Oh.
cover. And the
Thank you.
beautiful thing is, from a marketing standpoint, because I can step out of the editor role, from a marketing standpoint, you walk into the comic book store, you look across the store, you
Yeah.
see the big old wall of comics, and there's your book.
Yeah.
There's just no way they can avoid seeing that cover. And it's very dramatic, very well drawn. So you sold me. If I were just a reader going to the comic book store, which I regret I'm not, you sold me with that cover. Forget about the concept.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
As we were talking earlier on the show, we kind of did a little dive through Pop Culture Squad and what you can find on the site. There's an article about a couple weeks ago that Ed Cato did talking about red covers and how
Right.
there's so many of them that are attractive and important, and there's something about a red cover that just makes you want to go check it out. And it's not overly done too. It's not that every book has a red cover,
Yeah.
but this one really pops. I think Ed would appreciate it.
Don't tell anybody, because then we'll just see nothing but red covers.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, thank you.
So-
I'm glad it worked.
Oh, it certainly does for me. Let me tell you.
There's a lot of I look at when I follow some retailers because I went to the retailer conference a couple years ago when it was here in Pittsburgh and everything, and so I started following a lot of retailers, and so they often post the pictures of the new release wall, or
Right.
or several pictures on their social media of the new release wall, and honestly it's just it's really busy.
Yes.
And like you can't like it's and if you squint your eyes, it all just sort of becomes one big mesh of every color, so for me a lot of time, like the idea on these covers was to do something that was more graphic, that just sort of had like one central flat color, that would and something like that would really stand out amongst a bunch of very multicolored, heavily rendered covers that seem to be more the norm, and a lot of them are, you see them on their own, I think a lot of people think about covers on their own. Let me look at this. That's very beautiful. I like doing that. But
Right.
when you have to think about that wall that every other cover is on, what's gonna I hope that here I got one right here. So I hope that I'm trying to get I want that to stand out
Right.
amongst the field. I want it to be want it to be something that will catch somebody's attention, because sometimes you only have a second or two, which is something I learned at conventions. They say you have like at most 3 seconds to catch somebody's eye at a booth when they're looking at your poster or whatever. And you will see people who have busy posters with multiple, and that's why my poster has like one singular image. And that's what a lot of people do now, just one singular image, because you have just a few seconds to interest a person or not interest them. So
That's right. That's right. I respect your analysis for a bunch of reasons. One of which is that very few people seem to consider what that wall looks like when they sit down to draw the cover.
Yeah.
And the problem is, okay, everybody on the pull list is going to get your book, the one that they never heard of before. How do you get their attention?
Mm-hmm.
You gotta grab them at that big old wall of covers, and every week there's going to be 100 new titles up there. If you have a full service comic book store, which barely exists because they can't afford to take the risk of ordering everything, so you also want to be one of those books that they order.
Mm-hmm.
And having that in mind, that's the most important first step, assuming you know how to draw.
But that's the art of the cover, though, is all these different things that you're trying to accomplish at the same time. You can catch a person's eye, but are you giving a flavor for what's inside? Are you giving them a hint of the tone of what's of what's going to be on the other side of that cover? Are you still making it attractive? Or are you doing a little bit of storytelling with it without doing too much storytelling with it? So yeah, I mean, I've been doing a lot of covers. I've done a lot of covers in my career. So but I feel like every time I sit down to a new cover, I kind of feel like, oh, here we go again. I got to figure out how to solve all these problems.
That's right.
Because you started
that's
all over
cool.
again.
Sorry to interrupt you. I hadn't seen, Phil and I did a variant, and I hadn't seen it with the logo and everything on it yet. That's cool.
Cool.
So you guys just copied and said, let's do a red cover, right?
Yeah, I guess.
So,
Yeah.
so this is one of the there's two variants to issue one. One is by Fernando Blanco, and then this one is by some guy named Phil and some guy named Andy.
And there's actually one more, but it's not. I don't think they have it mocked up yet. Can I say?
Sure.
I can say, right?
Sure.
We got a variant by Klaus freaking Jansen.
Nice.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
That's very nice.
So
That
was a big. When I got that in my inbox, I was like, "Holy shit! What a
Yeah.
Red.
Um,
We're gonna play the theme, right?
there are blues. And Klaus actually had one coloring note, and I was like, I hope the colors is cool, because this guy's a brilliant colorist. And of course, the colorist said, "Yeah, that's perfect. I'll do that." So yeah.
About the book, back to the book. So you got Brad Simpson on colors here, and Brad colored you in on Uncanny Valley, right? Is that right?
No, I colored Uncanny Valley.
You colored all of it. Okay.
Yeah.
But you knew him. You brought him to the party. How did you?
I did.
He's a Tony Fleece guy.
Yeah, I knew him through Tony. He was doing the colors on Tony's book, Local Man.
Right. Okay, that's where it was. I knew he was coloring a Tony book.
Yeah, and like I didn't know him actually before that, but Tony vouched for him.
Mm-hmm.
Said he's really good to work with.
I'm very
Takes notes
familiar with his
well.
work beyond that. He's fantastic colorist.
Yeah. So I had seen his work. I knew he did great work, and Tony vouched for like how easy he was to work with. And I was yeah. Well,
Yeah, he's a total collaborator. Yeah, watching them. watching the
say he's
process of
terrible.
them
You can
like
say
getting synced.
bad
has been
choice
really
on our
cool.
part.
Yeah.
No, he's been great, and I will say, as someone who likes to color his own work, I have, in many instances in my career, I get the moment where my comp copies come in, and I'm honestly just nervous to open them up, because I'm
You know what the colors look like in your head?
I know what it looks like in my head, and I know it's not. I know how I would do it, and I think I'm pretty good at it. And also I think I have pretty good ideas about it. So there have been times in my career where I open up that comp copy and I go through about 3 pages and I just close it and I don't look at it again because um because my heart will sink, and not because it's bad necessarily, but sometimes it's not
It's
great.
different.
But it's different from what I would have done. I mean, it's always going to be different, right? One artist from another. It's always going to be different from what I would have done. It's a matter of how well can I live with it? Um, so yeah, it's been a thing with me where I have, I'm like, who are we going to get? Who are we going to get to color this thing? That I won't. My heart won't sink when I I want to be elevated. I want to feel like, oh, this is really added to the art, and I feel that way with Brad's work here. It's phenomenal. Like, he really captures um, the mood of what we're doing, and I think he's adding some really interesting layers to it. He's not, I told him at the beginning to let's not over render it, which he doesn't. I looked at his work, I know his work. He doesn't do a whole lot of rendering. For me, the best colors is just the best colorist just chooses the right colors. It doesn't have to be about painting everything,
Right.
or sculpting it or whatever, which works for some, but I don't think that style works for for the way I'm inking and stuff, because I'm doing so much. I over ink, frankly, and
Well, it's you're in the minority. Something we talk about a lot, and how the role of the inker, who we have one of the greats with us, has fallen to the role of the colorist, because so many pencilers have become their own inkers, and they, the mood, the background, all of that stuff is left to the colorist. But I want to kind of talk about one of the things you're talking about. I want to bring.
Let me jump in
Go
here.
ahead.
Not necessarily, and it doesn't have to be that way. Somebody involved in the process should be checking over, making sure that the color works for the storytelling.
No, yes.
And that's since the color work is at the end of the food chain, sometimes there isn't enough time for that.
Yeah.
Dave, I respect you because you at least open it up and look, and maybe get disappointed and maybe not. I don't look at my own stuff for years, and by years I mean decades. And then it's been so long, I totally forgot I did it, or I wrote
Then
it,
I
or what
find
I
it,
wrote.
bring it to you, and you're like, "Oh yeah, I did that."
Yeah, yeah. And this happens to me at every convention. It's like, did I do that? Holy crap! And then I apologize.
I want to open this discussion a little bit. I want to bring Andy in, especially because you made the first half of your career as a collaborator, with some amazing people, as the person who took somebody's pencils and had to transform them and not make them hate them. How did that work, and how can you talk a little bit about your partnership with Phil, and how that
Yeah.
worked, how that grew even?
Phil and I both broke in the early 90s, which was a good time. There were so many books being published. It was,
Yeah.
it was much easier to break in.
I mean, I just want to say so Fringe, like, so we've had Paul Tobin on the show too. So we like most of the people who worked on that book.
Yeah.
or have been on the show.
So we worked together on small press stuff. DC wouldn't let us work together for like 5 years. They would hire us separately, but not together. We were too weird. But anyway, as an inker, I broke in at the tail end of the grand old inking days when you got the actual penciled pages in a FedEx box. And if the letterer was a smoker, you'd open up the box and go, "Oh, Jesus, what?" And the lettering on the board, is so cool. My first job was an issue of Action Comics, penciled by Jackson Geis, actually breakdowns. Mike Carlin trusted me.
It was in the
the Save Luther's Brain. And that was really a taste of what inking was like, because Geis drew everything in simple line form, but didn't do any line weights and didn't really spot any blacks. So I had to channel all my Dick Giordano, Tom Palmer influence, although I could never draw like them in a million years, but had to, beef up the lines and indicate weight and light sources and all. That was what inking was for me. And then over the next decade, it kind of morphed into, I'm going to just risk pissing off some of my peers, whatever. It became a glorified who can make the prettiest line and trace the neatest competition at some point. And that was not really why I got into comics. I wanted to, like you said, collaborate. I wanted to have some room for me to show my personality while still being faithful to the pencils as much as I could. I wanted to be Dick Giordano, who inked everybody. You could always tell who the penciler was, but you saw a little bit of that Dick, fancy on it.
You did follow him on Catwoman.
Oh, yeah, that was, neither Jim Ballant or I are happy with that 4 issues. That was not a happy pairing. Probably the most mismatched thing I ever inked. Great royalties, though. Jesus, people love that book. So anyway, DC finally I guess it wasn't until Green Arrow. So it was because of the weight of Kevin Smith and Bob Schreck.
It was Green Arrow.
Said, yeah, I guess they can work together. Maybe they don't totally suck. And to this day, I'm shocked that on what was kind of a high importance book for them, they trusted us. But because Kevin said, "These are my guys, screw you," that's
right.
what I want to do.
I'm sure Kevin had a lot to say about that.
And Bob too. So once issue 1 came out, suddenly we were kind of a team, a mainstream superhero team, which we never really saw ourselves as, but we're happy to take the ride.
Yeah, there's always another ride if it doesn't work out. You survived Catwoman.
Right.
And that's something we have to remember. We're in a periodic medium. But if you're not in it for the collaboration, to pick up a point you just said, Andy, that if you're not in it for the collaboration, why the hell are you doing comics?
Right.
I mean, if you're doing a solo book, fine, that's a different thing. But the beauty of comics is the collaborative efforts, about how it's a sort of sequentially collaborative. And you can make these really interesting mid-course improvements. Notice I didn't say corrections. Improvements along the way. And that is all from that collaborative spirit. And that is, for me, part of the beauty of this medium.
Yeah. And I was very lucky to hook up with Hester, who we kind of had similar philosophies. One, we were at a similar skill level when we met. We were both kind of on the verge of good enough to break in. We also we had a similar aesthetic in that we wanted stuff to be bold and graphic and not too noodly and fine. We even kind of moved our hands the same way when we drew, like a whole arm kind of wrist lock motion, So just a really fortuitous meeting. And then we instantly saw in each other, yeah, I think this can work. And never any, why are you doing this with my pencils? Or why did you leave me this? And just we trusted each other right from the get-go.
I think that's important.
I'm also lucky in that he does not care for inking. He really,
he does not.
Phil does not want to finish drawings. His dream job would be Harvey Kurtzman in the EC years to write a script and do layouts. He'd be so happy if he could draw like
well,
5
that's what
books
Keith did.
and they'd all be layouts and hand them off to the greatest draftsman in the world like Kurtzman was able to do. That would be
Well,
Phil's dream.
Do you know that when he handed off those pages, they were already lettered with the balloon placements
Right.
and the balloons drawn?
Right.
And I understand, a guy like Kurtzman wanting to lay out the whole story to get everything out on the paper. I get that. But geez, and yet look who he worked with. Look who it didn't bother. It didn't
Right.
bother Wally Wood. It didn't bother Willie Elder.
Jack
Jack Davis.
Yeah.
So
I think
okay.
they said, you know what? He's got the storytelling handled. I'm going to draw these things like the badass son of a bitch that I am and just worry about the drawing of it.
And somehow they became badder asses.
Yeah.
You compare Elder's work or Davis's work in particular to the stuff in a similar genre that didn't have Harvey around. And it's still brilliant stuff. I mean, I don't think those guys ever drew a line that wasn't wonderful, but it was better. It was more exciting. It was interesting. There was more weird stuff going on. You could stare at it forever.
And I do love the stories, the war stories that Kurtzman finished on his own. The cartooning is so
absolutely wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
And again, back to what Phil and I, we like stuff bold. We'd rather kind of punch you in the gut with a graphic than let you wander around staring at it from different angles for a week.
I like that.
Dave, I want to talk a little bit about your journey here. You did not have a whole lot of published comics before you got you had the Godzilla show thing, and you had the Breath of Bones with Steve Niles. Is that right?
Yeah.
And then you got Turtles.
I had done I started my career like I do most things. I don't think about it ahead of time, and I definitely don't plan anything.
Okay.
So when I was in my late 20s and when I started to get the idea that I wanted to draw comics again, and so my idea was I'll do that by I wanted to make comics, so my idea was I think I'll make comics. So I wasn't one of these people who was like, oh, I'll put together my 6 or 7 pages. I'll take my portfolio. I'll go to convention. I'll wait in line. I'll get an editor to look at it. I'll get tips from them. I'll do another 6 or 7 pages. That was no interest to me whatsoever. I just immediately wanted to make comics, and so all my early stuff was self-published. I teamed up with this guy Jim Clark, who was doing his first time writing something, and I was doing my first time drawing something. And the internet being the way it was at that time, message boards were the thing. And so I posted some sample pages I'd put up there, and that's when I found Jim, and he had an idea, and it took 2 years to do a mini series that we 5 issues that we printed up ourselves. That's when print on demand started. So we were able to get it printed up, and then started going to conventions, and that's about 21 years ago. 22 years ago now. And I did that series, and then we did the next thing we did was a book called The Guns of Shadow Valley, which we had taken around and shown to publishers, and had some smaller publishers interested, but they wanted to either own too much of it or change it or do something. So we published as a web comic for a few years, I think 6 years in total, and then ended up taking that to Kickstarter, where it was we made like $44,000 on Kickstarter. and published it as a big hardcover, which I was only half done with the art at the time. So it took me another year to finish another 100 pages, and doing all the art and the coloring and co-writing it. And then we published our big hardcover, and Dark Horse picked it up. In the meantime, I had done, one of the reasons that one took so long is that I had done Breath of Bones for Dark Horse, and actually the first publisher I was working with was IDW. I had met Bobby Curnow, editor at IDW, at San Diego. I was at San Diego because Guns of Shadow Valley had been nominated for the webcomic Eisner. So I went to San Diego, which I had been before, but I told myself I wasn't really going to go back to it because I wasn't enjoying it. But I went back for the Eisners, and my friend Tony Fleece said, you should put together a portfolio and I'll take you around to editors. All these editors I know, because Tony was always a guy. I was just making comics and I had a day job. And Tony was a guy who was like, I'm going to make this my job. So he took me around to some editors, but I met Bobby Curnow, and that's when I first started doing IDW stuff. And I did the book That Hellbound Train, which was a little horror mini series. And then I did a book that Bobby wrote called Night of a Thousand Wolves, which was a horror mini series. That one got me nominated for the Russ Manning. So I went back to San Diego again the next year. But Bobby became then the head editor for, the group editor for all the Ninja Turtles and Godzilla books. And he was always like, we got to get you on some Ninja Turtles books. So then I just start, kind of, and that's the way I got into doing Ninja Turtles books. And then I ended up doing, the way they do the artists for that book is it's the same writers and the same colorists, but the artist cycles back and forth. So I would do anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6 issues. Then another artist would, do a couple issues, another artist a couple issues, and then I would come on for another 2, 3, 5 issues. But over the course of 3 years, ended up doing, I don't know, 28 to 30, 28 issues.
I think over 30.
Yeah, something like that. I ended up doing a lot of it. So I became, and that's how I became a Ninja Turtles artist, and I worked on that book between issues 59. I did the last few pages of 58 because the regular artist had to travel or something like that. So I drew over his thumbnails and then started with 59, and then I did issue up to issue 100, where I had people doing artwork over my thumbnails on parts of it because it was a double issue. And they had to keep those things on time. And now apparently I will always be a Ninja Turtles artist. Like it's one of those. It's one of those properties that once you do enough of it, you're always in the group. You're in the club. So I'm not one of the top dogs in the club by any means, but I've paid the membership dues, and so Ninja Turtles fans don't forget, like they don't so I always have Ninja Turtles commissions at every convention, signing books and doing head sketches inside people's hardcovers and things like that. So Ninja Turtles has been a gift that keeps on giving. But I don't
Ninja
remember.
Turtles,
Yeah.
please.
No, go ahead.
Ninja Turtles fans, and I mean this very positively, are very committed
Mm-hmm.
to their hobby. And it's not that I, don't understand it or anything like that. It's not my generation. But let me tell you what the Ninja Turtles and Superman have in common. Superman was rejected by every comics publisher There was about a half a dozen of them at the time, but still, every comics publisher in the late 1930s. The only reason why it made it into Action Comics is because the publisher was desperate for a lead story, and a competing editor, Shelley Mayer over at All American Comics, said, "Well, I remember this Siegel Schuster thing, and you guys work with him anyway, so why don't you?" And they said, "Oh, great, it's finished. Fine, we'll run it." It was done, and that's how Superman started. Will Eisner was an editor. He rejected it. When the Turtles came around, they sent out copies to all the publishers, including me at First Comics. And just like Will Eisner, I too reject it. It's
I don't want to.
It's a phenomenon. I love it.
It is.
Bob, can I interrupt?
I remember.
I wanted to say something since Mike talked about his own career a little bit. Bob, I hope you're secure in your own position as a co-host of this show, because I need to talk about Mike for a moment.
Oh no, that's fine. That's the fun part.
Mike, you wouldn't be aware of me from this era, but you were such a vital part of my kind of deciding to get into comics and getting into comics. I graduated high school in '83, went to Chicago Con for the first time that year when it was still downtown. First comics had just happened, Chaykin was there.
Yeah.
It was such an exciting time and helped kind of ignite this, like, whoa, what is going on? This is super cool. And then a gap of 3 years, maybe, while I was trying to figure out if I wanted to go to college. I did not, it turned out. Before I started going to Chicago again, and then I went for like 15 years straight. And you were just a constant presence there. I would see you every year, show you my stuff when I could, and so on. And that con meant so much to me. And your presence was a big part of it. I don't know if you probably remember that con. People don't. We had it so great. The Chicago Comic Con back in the days when it was at the Ramada by the airport had a portfolio room, just rotating. Editors would come in and do an hour, 2 hours. You could walk in. Phil and I would go around the room with our portfolio 5 times in a day and meet different editors every time.
I know about the portfolio room.
Yeah.
Because Phil told me about it.
Yeah. It was so important. And now you got to be like, oh, maybe you win a lottery and some Marvel assistant editor will look at your stuff for 5 minutes. Oh, it's terrible. Now, the plus side is you can publish anything online and they can see it that way. But just as far as getting feedback from peers and editors in person, it was just mind-blowing. So, Mike, you were a big part of that for me. I just wanted to say thank you.
Well, I'm very proud to have done anything to move you into this business, and I'm therefore going to take credit wherever I can. I mean, I'm glad. It was one of the most fulfilling jobs I had in my life, and I've had a lot, usually at the same time. And doing those Chicago Comic Cons they were large, and some years we actually had large crowds in San Diego in the early days. But it was an intimate convention, and you could talk to people one-on-one, and I love that. And I've made more friends out of that show and worked with more people and encouraged more new talent. So at this point in my life, I can look back on that and say that I'm very proud of that experience. And I really thank you for what you've said, because that's very life-affirming. Thank you.
Good. No, it meant a lot to me. Thanks.
So Andy, you have to understand that I sit here and I do this with him every every week, and I tell him, semi-annually at least, how much the work that he did changed my life. And I want you can validate this. If he didn't do what they were doing at first, there's so many things that DC and Marvel never would have done.
Right.
I don't think they would have had the balls
Right.
without things like American Flag and John Sable going on. Um,
Just
and
showing what could happen if you gave a great creator free reign and paid him a living wage, which is
right.
so.
And
To make it
also-
full circle, this is what Ignition is trying to do.
Right.
Ignition has kind of broke the mold of the small press comics world that broke me personally so badly that I fled for novels and screenplays and everything for a while because I was sick of no or little money and trying to get an artist to draw 150 pages for, $2,000. It's insane. I finally got worn out. Like I'm doing the writing for free. I'm trying to recruit some artists to do the work on the cheap so we can get the damn thing out there. And it just broke me. I couldn't handle it anymore. And Ignition finally, after, my Hollywood producer guy, Eric Gitter, is kind of the guy behind the whole thing. He was promising for years, I'm going to just do it, we'll do it ourselves. And I didn't really believe it. I don't believe anything. I didn't believe Extraction was going to happen. I didn't believe it. I just don't. I tend to be like, screw it. I'll believe it when I see it. And finally, they started hiring Philip and Jamie, and I was like, oh shit, they're really going to do this thing. And now I have a place to make books where I'm encouraged to do the most personal things that I really think are important to my career and myself as a creator. But I'm actually making a living wage to do it. It's amazing. And I can ask Dave to join me and know that he's going to make it. I'm not exploiting him to try to get the damn thing done.
Which I'm very happy about.
We still have a ways to go, but
Yeah.
we have gone so far in the 85-year history of this medium, from essentially children who were enslaved to their publishers. I got a check from DC Comics, a picture of that check to Siegel and Schuster for you to prove that one. From being enslaved by your publisher to being treated like a storyteller would be treated in almost any other medium except for maybe Hollywood, because they've just had way too much LSD. But we have fought hard. So many people before any of us. Neil Adams, God bless him. He wasn't the first. He won't be the last. And when it comes to our creative freedom, whether we like it or not, we're all warriors here, and we all have to have each other's backs. Otherwise, Disney will own it all, and whomever owns Warner Brothers this week will own it all, and I don't want to live in that world.
Right.
It bores me.
I want to I have a question for Andy, and then I have another question for Dave. But my question for Andy is, you mentioned Extraction, and the work you've been doing in film for the past, however long. What did you learn from that you may have brought back to comics? Because now you now have a home here.
One, I learned I didn't very much enjoy writing screenplays.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah, I'm much more happy in a comic book script. Sorry, my hotel room has a really loud ice maker. Okay. If you're Quentin Tarantino, you can write a screenplay and you can throw in whatever verbiage you want. I was not him, so you're supposed to learn this shorthand that I found hard to deal with. My comic book scripts are kind of like half screenplay, but half letter to the artist. Just like I want to say, hey, here's what I'm trying to achieve. I trust you to run with it. I'm much more comfortable in that space. It also taught me to lean into what you feel, to bet on yourself as much as possible. Because I did Union Station, Capote in Kansas, with like no money. We got $4,000 each to do those books. I gave it all to the artists, not because I'm a hero, because it was just fair, and I was making a living inking comics. So I had like 2 jobs, inking during the day to pay the bills and writing at night as much as I could. But that was important to me because I wanted to have something in the world that I owned. I didn't want to just be beholden. Phil and I call it chasing Batgirl. You can only chase Batgirl for so long before you find yourself 60 years old and some 25-year-old editor is going, and you are. And that's just a depressing, I just couldn't face that. So I wanted to have some things that were mine. I wanted to put some balls into the damn lottery, and Union Station was so close to getting made as a film several times. It would have got me a big check. Never got a dime, never got made. But the Russos liked it enough that they said, hey, this is the guy we should ask to work on this Ciudad thing with us. So the fact that I bet on myself and stayed up late working on those books that were important to me and putting balls into that lottery, finally, with the project I didn't anticipate coming along, paid off in a way that let me be a full-time writer again and just say, wow, I can afford to do this now. And that's the biggest, 2 pieces of advice I give to kids at shows. 1, don't worry about perfect. Perfect is impossible. Finish this thing the best you can and make the next one better. And 2, try to find a way to bet on yourself in personal ways. Don't be beholden to some editor at Marvel or DC or wherever to keep your lights on for the rest of your life.
Right.
I started that way. It's a fine way to get a career going. But as soon as you can, try to bet on things that you own and that you control. And that if the Green Arrow movie got made, it didn't help me a bit, except it might move a few extra trades and I might get a bigger royalty. I wanted stuff out there that if it blows up, I'm the one who benefits. So I think it's so important in this business or in any creative field to just try to bet on yourself whenever you have time to do so.
Absolutely. That is the most important advice I have heard in quite some time.
Thanks.
So to follow on that a little bit, Dave, what the scripts that you get from Andy, he just told us are, a lot of, here's what I'm thinking. Go with it. How is that? What are the pros of a script that asks the artist to give a lot of input versus a script that is, I want you to draw this here. Here's the direction. I'm going to tell you what color, shoes the person's wearing and how many laces are on each shoe.
I mean,
there's no implied right or wrong.
No,
there is an implied right or wrong. But
well, it's going to be, and of course it's going to be different for the collaboration. It's going to be, from one artist will tell you one thing, what they like, and I'll tell you something else, and then it'll be different according to whatever story you're working on. Whether you need, I work best with less direction. Like that's how I feel. Like I am contributing
do you feel that the end result is better with less direction?
Yes.
Or do you feel you just work better that way?
Both.
Okay.
I do think it's better with less direction because I believe in my storytelling abilities. And I also believe that it's to a certain extent. I've worked with a bunch of different writers, and I've worked both, on books that we're publishing ourselves, for putting on the web, and I've worked for publishers, worked for IDW on their properties. I've worked for Marvel on a bunch of their properties, and I've gotten the most joy when there is less writing, and I think there's a lot of writers today who feel like they need to give you everything, every piece of it, and have as much control over it as they can, because in many an editor will let that happen, because in so many, this has become a very writer centric business.
Yes.
in recent times. I I don't I think that is a real detriment in ways that it's just the balance is off. But I just like to see, um, you know, when I get my first Marvel gig was Larry Hama was writing, and this was just a few years ago. This is 6 years ago, and
2021.
yeah, there you go. And it was that's when it finally. I mean, we started, and then COVID hit, and then we had to
Yeah.
stop, and then we started again. So, but it was that Iron Fist book, and he, you know, there's no dialogue. There's just a couple of paragraphs, and it's not strictly what I have seen as the Marvel method. It's a little more than that. He breaks down the beats, um, but it's not panel one description dialogue, panel two description it's not that. It's just like a paragraph for this page. And I loved it. I loved that style so much. And then he came in and added. I had no idea what the dialogue was what, that he was going to write in there. Um, so I would put, here's a close up of Iron Fist talking, because I think this is where he would. This is a good place that would have a line of dialogue. Um, and I just that was pure joy for me. And in ways it's more, it's more work, but it's more creativity on my end. It's more work, but it's easier for me to really decide how a page flow is going to work and how many panels are in a page if I get to decide that. When you write that paragraph and
Right.
then I'll go, okay, I think this is a 5 panel thing. Then most of the time, but 99 times out of 100, the script has panel one, panel, this is, there's 5 panels on this page, this is panel one. And I have no problem, that's the way it is. But I do find that it's actually a little harder for me, because I have to, there are points where I don't feel, I'm really struggling, this is not working, why is this not working? I'll come to the realization it's written wrong. I'm just gonna rewrite this. I'm gonna put how many panels I think should be in it. And when I finally figured out to myself to give myself the freedom to do that, things go so much easier than when I feel like, well, he said 5 panels, I have to do 5 panels. I don't really have that problem anymore. It's not.
Dean
It's
just
because
posting
He
the
he
didn't,
same
said,
he didn't
comment.
say it again. I'm just bringing it back because he said it
Oh,
earlier.
okay, yeah.
but it's because I feel like that's my job, is to decide
This is
the visuals of it. So like I just feel like I'm doing my job at that point.
this is where I go into my weekly sermon about how comics is a visual storytelling form.
Yeah.
Now, that does not kneecap the writer in any way whatsoever. It's a different medium, and you gotta let the artist art. And if you collaborate with your team, then it's not a problem. And after a while it becomes instinctive. It's like, okay, he wants to see 7 panels here, that's fine, but I can do it better in 5. And they don't even notice after a while. It's like,
Right.
oh, this is great. you know
And
it's visuals.
I painted myself as Larry Hama type, and that's not true. It's a very complete script. I feel like,
But it's a great script, Andy.
thank you, but I feel like I don't want to ask for anything to be drawn that I can't picture at least one way, but I don't need it drawn my way. I just feel like I owe it to the artist to say, by the way, here's a possible way to do it, just in case. But I think I lead every collaboration by saying, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't trust you, so please,
Right.
Right.
And that's important.
I always have to do a lettering pass with Dave because, like he said, there may be an extra panel, there may be a less panel. It always works better. I've never had an issue in the lettering going, oh, what did he do? It's all fine. I'm happy to do that extra step because it allows him to bring his storytelling to the party.
Yeah, I think that what you said about trust is key right there. It's just it's a matter of a good collaborative relationship where, if I feel like I can trust my writer and I feel like that I can be trusted,
Yeah.
as a professional, like, why would you hire me if you didn't think I could do this job? Uh, at least
Since we're talking about
halfway
this,
decent.
I do have a question, and you don't have to answer publicly, but I will get the answer out of you. What did you get from Mr. Thomas for the X-Men Legends books you worked on? What was that like?
Oh no! As far as how his writing was,
Well, in terms of, did you get a script? Did you get Marvel full Marvel method? What was it like?
no, yeah, it was more in the Marvel. I'm trying to remember exactly, but yeah, it was more in the Marvel method. More of a very uh, less, yeah, not complete panel breakdowns and things like that. I'm trying to remember exactly, but yeah, it was much more in that vein rather than in a full scripted thing. Yeah, that was a interesting collaboration. Yeah,
You can talk about it.
yeah, I
You're
can talk
allowed to.
about. Yep, yep.
I will see
It
you
was.
in Charlotte.
I will. Yeah, I will. I will say though that it did a kid like 10 Dave was thrilled to bits that he got to basically draw the first appearance of Wolverine where he fights the Hulk, um but just do it from the other side, rather than following. So instead of following Hulk home and see where he goes after that, we just turn around, we have the fight, and then we follow Wolverine back to Weapon X headquarters and continue with his story. To be able to like do that scene again, just was a thrill. I mean, that was quite an opportunity. The rest of the story is what it is. What I lived for was that opening fight scene with Wolverine in the whisker mask and fighting the Hulk again. So the fact that I got to do that was tremendous.
All right, we can leave it at that. May 27th, Bad Thoughts hits the streets.
Yeah, and I think I just heard today that the FOC is April 20th.
Yes,
April 20th. All right, it's good. That makes sense.
Cool.
FOC is such a it's an interesting thing because it has become such an important part of the comic book shop experience.
Yeah.
If you're part of if you regular at your shop, you're probably on the list. Like my shop sends me an FOC. I can't be bothered to go through it every week because I have so much to do. But my friends who do that, and they're like, oh, I got to make sure I add this. I'm like, they're gonna add everything I want. They should know what I want.
Right.
Like
that's a good shop.
I spend a lot of money in that shop. They should know what I want. And then I get mad because, I've just told them to put every Ignition book on my list. So that's how it works.
It's really cool being part of the planet. Ignition had like an island, a planet, and people come up to the table and say, "Hey, I buy everything Ignition. What do you got?" They're really building a brand. And by the way, from a retailer point of view, neither you, Bob, or Mike were at Comics Pro, right?
Not this year, no.
I'm sorry, no.
I went, and it really opened my eyes to the publisher retailer dynamic, which was kind of all new to me. I watched several panels where publishers, at Comics Pro, it's like a plumber's convention, but it's for comic book retailers. It's not like a normal comic book convention.
Right.
So the publishers get up and they say, "Here's our slate," and they got, it's tight. They may have 20 minutes, they may have 15, and they got to run it all down. But I heard Philip make the pitch for all the stuff they're doing based on retailer feedback. Stuff like healthy overprints on the first issue, shipping on a 6-week schedule so that retailers have more input before they have to order the subsequent issues.
That's huge.
Our universal branding strategy, their designers are really good, and the branding on every series is the same, logo the same. You flip it over, the cover wraps around a little bit, you get a synopsis of what the damn thing is, even a unique serial number, all this stuff that they're doing.
Scott Newman is the secret weapon of Ignition.
Yeah. Just all this stuff that they're trying to do to make retailers, and they're like, look, we're not trying to glorify ourselves by selling out of this crap. We're trying to make you guys as much money as possible. I have it available, so when people want it, you can sell it. They're really trying to have a good conversation with retailers and deliver what they need.
One thing that you learn real fast being a freelancer is you go into it for love and dedication, but you still have to pay the rent.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time to learn that when you're starting out, because you're so full of enthusiasm. And I think that's the way it should be. It may feel a little bitter when you learn those hard realities of what it's like to be a freelancer or an actor or a performer in any field. But you're doing it right. You are in this place where you control your own sense of wonder, and you can put it on the page. Not everybody gets that.
Right.
Well, again, thank you guys for being here. We're really looking forward for everybody else to get a chance to see Bad Thoughts. I can't wait to get issue 1. May 27th, April 20th is FOC.
And by the way, just so people know, it's almost all done.
Yeah, that's
Dave
the
is
one
working
thing
on
that
the final
Ignition is
issue,
really
so
doing well.
There's not going to be any delays. It's a 6-week schedule. It's going to be there.
I could probably figure
Right.
out some way to. I could figure out some way to screw that up.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah, I'm working on the last issue. So
You see, that's a gift that many writers and artists have.
yeah,
You know,
To screw shit up.
Yeah.
screw shit up. Yeah, I think that's why we're here on this planet.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
We're here to
We're
screw
just trying
shit
not
up.
to screw shit up.
But on a panel last week, Jamie Rich talked about it. One of the reasons he wanted to do this with Ignition was he wanted to build this model where you can't hone things because it's out the door Tuesday.
Right.
Like I've had chances to go back with series I've done with them and go, you know what? For this issue, for this moment in issue 5, it'd really be better if in issue 3 this guy came in with this, and it'll add another layer. And we got time. It's really cool.
That's amazing. That's beautiful.
All right, guys, we got to let you go. We will have you back. This has been wonderful. Thank you for sharing all these stories. Thanks for making this book. We're looking forward to getting it, and we'll see you later.
Thanks so
Dave,
much. The book means a lot to me. I'm really glad you gave us a chance to talk about it.
Oh, anytime. You guys are great. Really enjoyed this conversation. Keep it going.
thanks so much. I also want to say, Bob, it's great to see you. Andy, it's great to see you. And Mike, it was really nice to meet you. I'm really glad
Nice
we got
meeting
to.
you, Dave.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, thanks, guys.
a lot. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very
Take care,
much.
boys.
All right. That was fun.
All right, folks. Yes, it was fun. I want to remind you before we get to it, we have a show coming up in 2 nights. On Thursday, we're going to be here with Chris Miskevich and another person that I don't remember his name. But they made a great book, and we're going to talk about it.
I was really pissed at you now.
I know he's going to be, but he probably won't know. It's okay. and then this is our upcoming slate. So pay attention wherever you're watching this. Make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, whatever it is. We're going to keep coming at you. We got comic creators every week, new stuff, old stuff. It's going to be a great spring. And thanks for being here, everybody, on this wonderful Talk on Tuesday.
Folks. Yep. Thank you for being here, folks. Those of you who are going to Ithaca the end of this month, Bob and I will see you there, along with a lot of other really cool people. Until then, Well, as Bob said, we'll be here on Thursday and next Tuesday. Take
See you
it
later.
easy, folks.
Read more comics; they're good for you.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com. How do you nerd?